Hi, this is Kylie Q. Thanks for joining me in my studio today. So welcome to all subscribers, including new subscribers, and thanks for all the likes and all the comments that you left on my journal cover from last week. So let's get on to this week's challenge, which is to make signatures for our journal. And what I'm going to use is old greetings cards. So really good idea to recycle greetings cards in whatever way possible. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that actually some cards can't go into the recycling tubs or into the recycling bins because of some of the materials used. So sometimes if they've got a foil or if they've got glitter, they can't actually, and indeed some councils here don't even take them. So I've dug out a whole load of cards. And I'm just looking roughly here at the size that's going to fit in with the journal. Now some will have these little embellishments and I'm just going to go through my cards and pull those off. So my journal is going to be made entirely with greetings cards, and you could use birthday cards or anything of that sort. I just want to make sure that I am using these as best as possible, and I think this is a really good item to recycle, to upcycle in this way. So speeding it up a bit now, the likes of these glossy cards might need to be sanded, other cards might need to be cut down a bit, but here's how I'm going to prepare them. I'm taking a load of scrap papers. This was a little book of paper, 6x6 papers I bought ages ago. I'm not going to use them in any other way. So what I'm going to start to do is to glue these down onto the pages. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of the process. I'm going to do this with old drop sheets, with gel prints, with old book pages. See there, and just roughly tearing them. Others I might just cut off. Some I will cover the entire page. I might leave the sides that are white, just leave them blank. I'm going to cover basically any writing up as far as possible. And in some instances I'll just put some little bits of paper over the writing. It doesn't need to be the whole thing that's covered. And all I'm doing is starting to prepare them so that they can go in this journal, so that when I come to use it I have pages already prepared that I don't need to start from the very beginning on. And I'll do some with paint. You know, you can paint them, you could stick paper down on them, anything at all. You know, lots of little scraps you can just use. If some of them are glossy, you might need to give them a little bit of a scuff up with a bit of sandpaper beforehand. Just test out your paints. Here I'm just using some bottles of craft paints that are just about finished, so quite a good way to use up paints as well. That one I'm just going to take the little glossy bits off it just in case things don't stick to that. There's a few cards that I'm actually leaving because I quite like the images on them, and I'm thinking that maybe I can actually keep the image but adapt it in future. I'm not concerned if something doesn't go right to the edge. Here I'm just showing you that page was long, and rather than cutting it, I'm actually just going to fold it right over the other side of the card. And it doesn't matter if that text's going on upside down or not. This is just scrap pages going to cover these, and these will all be painted over probably at some point anyway, painted over or collaged over in future. So really just creating a base. Now some of those 6x6 papers, some people might think, well, they're too good to use for this. And in some ways I would agree, but in other ways they're sitting there, they've sat in my stash for ages. Not entirely certain why I bought them in the first place. I think they were a reasonable price and I bought them, but there's no point in them sitting there, so I'd rather use them in some way. So I now have 24 cards here. That's the amount that I've done so far. And I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking that looks like a good number to fill this journal, especially given that some of them will be collaged on further, so they're going to get thicker. So that seemed like a good amount. So I'm just roughly fitting them into their different kind of sizes here, because I then want to check which ones will definitely need to be cut down. So just looking at them kind of top and bottom, and I can see that I'm going to have to trim a couple. I don't think there was any more than about half a dozen that I needed to trim. And all I'm going to do is run my rotary tool across them just to cut them back a little bit. And I don't mind that they will all be different sizes. To me, that just adds interest, but of course you could make them all the one size if that's what you wanted. So just using a pencil there just to mark it, I'll just use a straight edge, then my rotary tool. I didn't want to put this through my normal paper cutter because, you know, there's two thicknesses of card, and then there's the paper that I put on top of it. Obviously they could have been cut beforehand, but I didn't know how many I was going to need. So kept that little ribbon there because I liked it, but now what I'm basically doing is just going to set them out into signatures. Most of them are roughly the same size of card, but you know, some a couple smaller than others. So just sorting them out into their signatures. And I'm going to keep with the 6 signatures. I said in last week's video that, you know, when I wrapped the elastic round, I was looking at probably 6 signatures. That just felt about right. So that will give me 4 cards in each signature. And you see there that I miscounted. I set out 5 signatures rather than 6. So a simple mistake. Anyway, in a moment, once I've got them all together, I'm actually going to go back and address the inside of my journal cover. I hadn't known what to do with that, and I kind of felt that last week's video was getting to a length where I didn't want to make it any longer. But what I'm going to do now is to actually paint the inside of the cover. So I'm going to put my six signatures, that's not easy to say, my 6 signatures to the side. I'm taking my elastic off, I'll take my little handles out, and all I'm going to do is to get some of these Pebeo paints, some of my favourite paints. I just wanted something shiny because the outside was shiny. I thought I'll use these Pebeo iridescent acrylics, and a little of these actually go quite a long way and they blend nicely together. So again, I just wanted something kind of bright so that when I open the journal it's just nice and bright. And I'll list the colours below, but you know, again, use what you have. That's what it's all about. So I got those basic colours down, the kind of pink and blue. I'll put the proper names of it down below, and added some metallic gold and bronze, I think it was, just to lift it a little bit. So I'm now going to put this elastic back on, just quickly looking at the signatures there, just double checking, and I'm going to put the elastic on. I'll slow this back down just to show you how I'm doing it. So again, just showing you how I measured it. I've got 6 signatures, so I'm measuring 6 lengths of the journal. I add an extra one for luck, and then I just double that, and that's going to be more than enough to go all the way around. Now of course, because the elastic has a bit of give in it, it's actually a bit more than that, but if you were doing it with twine, you would measure it in the exact same way. So I'm taking my length, holding it at the bottom there, and then I'm just going to take that right around the spine. I'm trying to keep it in camera, so it will flap about a bit as I go back and forward, and of course it's quite a long length there. And it doesn't matter if they start to go over each other at this stage, it'll be easy enough to straighten them out in a moment. So I'm going to make sure that I've got 6 strings on the inside. So just about there. Just pulling them on fully onto the spine. And I've not got them too tight at this stage. And what I'm going to do now is twist one end round the other. Just showing you that again, just twisting it, so taking one and the other and just slightly twisting it round. And then all I'm going to do, albeit that I do get a bit kind of all fingers and thumbs, or all thumbs, don't know what the saying is, but I'm then going to lift the threads and just pull one of the ends right through to the other side. So again, this is where a third hand would be handy. There we go. Managed to lift it up with my thumb. And I'm just going to take that one and pop it under, and then I'm just going to do a simple knot and a simple bow. I think I do put a double bow in it in the end, but I've not pulled it too tight. So again, I could go back and adjust this. The fact that it's round elastic, it may work itself loose a little bit, especially once I start to put the signatures in. So it's not so tight that I can't undo it. But as I said last week, if you're using twine, you may just need a little bit more slackness in it to allow your signatures to go in. So I think that's quite neat looking, and of course you can straighten up the threads as you go along. So to put the signatures in, simply a case of opening it in the middle, lifting, in this case, the elastic, and popping it in. Now the more that go in, the more difficult it might be. This is where the elastic, rather than the likes of twine or an embroidery floss, is handy, just because the elastic does have that bit more give. But just putting all the signatures in and just adjusting the threads as I go. Now I've used greetings cards, but you could use any type of old book pages, scrapbooking pages, anything at all you could fill this sort of journal with, and even a mixture, you know, flyers, junk mail that come through the post, leaflets that come through the post or wherever. You could stick them all in, and in fact you could even use this just to simply hold greetings cards that you wanted to keep but and didn't want to get rid of. So just going back to put in my recycled gift bag handle, and I'm just showing you here that actually you could use just one of these, and because it's that bit bigger than the journal itself, it would allow for the journal to expand. So even one of those could be quite handy. I'm going to keep it the two at the moment. I'm still not gluing them in because I'm thinking there might be something else I want to do to the inside of that journal cover. I've just not fully committed to it yet, so maybe see next week or the week after, who knows. Now, one thing I'm thinking about doing, and that is actually sewing my signatures. This is basically a no-sew style journal, but you could sew the signatures if you wanted to. And I was thinking I might take these out to work on. Obviously you could still take them out, but if I was going anywhere or just sitting in front of the TV, little journal with me to work on, then it would be handy for it to be stitched in. So here I'm just making a little template. It's an old cardboard box, a medicine box of some description, so just making this a template, and it just happens to be roughly the size of these cards, so that's quite handy. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to find my smallest card, because I just want to see how it fits against that. But what I'll do is I'll mark it on the basis of the smallest card, and then when I do my signatures I know that this is going to fit all the cards, so it won't be a case of one of the cards only being caught with one hole. So I know that's my smallest card in there. I'm not going to do all my signatures today, but I'm going to put one hole towards the bottom, one about, I don't know, it's maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from either end. It's not exactly spaced, that doesn't matter, I'm just eyeballing it. So I'm going to put that one back, and of course it doesn't matter if every signature's stitched in the exact same place, the fact that they're going to sit in there separately anyway. So what I'm going to do now, because these are quite thick cards, I will probably just punch them one at a time. So I'm just going to take an awl, or sometimes referred to as a pokey tool. I'm just lining that up with my card, and I'm simply going to punch through. So just holding it in place to make sure that I punch correctly, because I want all my cards to be punched in the same way so that I can sew them together. Pushing through. Once I've done that, I didn't go too far through though, you can see the holes, but I'll just go through it once more just to make certain. So I'll do that with the other cards now. If your paper isn't too thick, you can do a whole signature at once, but as I say, these cards, some of them anyway, were quite thick, so I didn't want to struggle trying to do them all in a oneer. Right, now that I've got that, I'll slow this down again just to briefly show you how I sew them together. So I've got a needle obviously, and sometimes I will take 2.5 times the length of the card. This time I'm only going to take about 2 because I know that's going to be more than enough. I'm using a waxed thread. I'll run it through my fingers. It just warms the wax up a little bit and helps it to glide through the paper. And I always find waxed thread much easier for threading the needle because there's no kind of loose end bits on it. With anything else, I never get it through first time. So I've got that done, and now it's a very simple stitch to sew these together. So I'm going to do it from the inside. You can do it from the outside as well, same process, but from the inside I'm just going to go through that middle hole. Now if they're not all lined up to begin with, just feed them through one at a time. You can then either go down the way or up the way. I usually go to the top, it's just the way I do it, but you know, it doesn't matter which way. So I'm going to the top hole now, and if I've got those lined up correctly, that should just go all the way through. If there's a little bit of movement, then again you can feed them through one at a time. Just be sure to hold on to the tail of your thread, because it's amazing how often you let go and then the next thing is it's going all the way through. Now I'm taking it right down to the other end and through that other hole. Again, it's gone through quite nicely, and again I'm still holding that tail of the thread with my thumb. So you'll see that that's on the left hand side of the middle thread now. What I want to do now is to bring this back up to the middle hole, and I want to bring it out on the right hand side. That's just so that when I tie a knot in this, it's keeping that thread nice and tight and centred. Give it a gentle tug, not too hard because you don't want to rip the paper. Just check that that's taut enough. So a gentle pull, I'll take my needle off and I'll just put 2 knots in this. If I was using something like an embroidery thread, I would probably put 3 knots in it. But because this is waxed, it just seems to hold so much better. Pull that together nice and tight, and I'll just cut those ends off. And then that can just fit back into my journal cover. So whenever I want to work in it, I could take it out, I could work on it over a few days, I can leave it out the journal if it needs to dry, and then I can just pop it back in to the elastic. The other thing about this style is if I decided I had too many signatures, it's easy enough to take one out. I can adjust the number of threads so long as I haven't put that elastic on too tight. So, not particularly pretty looking pages at this stage, but practical, and the fact that I've got a base down on them, it means that I can start to work on them without having to do too much more. Just making sure that's tight and that it's not going to slip out. So of course Nina will have a video this week, and I'll leave a link to her video below. And if you're not in the Mixed Media Emporium, then I'll leave a link to the group below. That's a Facebook group, just in case you're interested in joining. If you're in the Mixed Media Emporium, then what we want to see this week are your signatures. So if you've not yet shown us your journal, you're still very welcome to show the journal too. But what we're not looking to see is a fully completed journal at this stage. That's okay if you want to go on and complete it fully, but we really just want to see your cover and your signatures. And if you're posting in the group, then please make certain to actually put the name of the prompt and the challenge that you're doing. That's very important, and it makes our job a lot easier because at the end of the day, it is a prompt related group. So that's it for this week, and very simple pages here. As I say, not terribly pretty looking, but they are going to be so useful, so practical, and I'm really looking forward to working in this journal. So as always, take care, give me the thumbs up if you liked the video, but meantime I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.